Does wearing a piglet head keep you safer than golden armor? Can you make an end portal vertically like a nether portal? And these are 47 Minecraft block myths tested to see if they work. TNT no longer activates when you punch it. Now this used to be how TNT was originally before we had a way to light it off, and it made it really destructive if you placed down a thing of TNT because you couldn't get it back. Is this still the case? If I break it in creative, nothing's gonna happen. But if I punch this in survival, it does explode. And really, this has nothing to do with mods and everything to do with the NBT data, since it still exists that you're able to use the give command to give yourself TNT unstable. So while it's true in survival, it is actually false overall for vanilla. This myth says that falling anvils do more damage than dripstone. Well, let's give that a test here. We've got our pointed dripstone, we got our anvils, and let's see. Observer, if you wouldn't mind being my test subject, or if you want to drop it on my head. How much damage did that do? Okay, 4.5, maybe 5 hearts. Now let's see with pointed dripstone. All right, so we're gonna have to place the solid block one higher so that we're dropping it at the same elevation. All right, our dripstone bullet. Well, I think we can safely say that does more damage. So after just 4 blocks fallen, dripstones will deal 18 damage, while the anvil will only do 6. All right, we got another falling anvil one. This one says that falling anvils remove lava in the column that they fall through. So if I place our anvil right here, we've got a solid pool of lava. Will it fall through and remove the lava? No, because it counts as an entity as it's falling. It doesn't remove any of these because it doesn't actually count as taking up the block. And it's only gonna remove that bottommost. So the way that I would get rid of all this lava is with a whole bunch of iron and a whole bunch of noise. This myth says that conduits prevent underwater mobs spawning in a radius around it. We will see, do any mobs spawn next to this conduit? Well, we'll have to fly a bit away to be able to make sure that they have enough distance away from us to spawn. So we're seeing a bunch of drown pop up in the outskirts. However, there's never going to be any directly next to the conduit, but it has nothing to do with the conduit's range and more with the fact that the conduit's a light source. And so even if I'm going to go have conduit power all the way over here, it doesn't actually change anything with the mob spawning. This myth says the best tool to mine bamboo is an axe. Let's test that. So while an axe is definitely going to be faster than my fist to take down bamboo, the truth is that a sword is the one that's the only instant break for bamboo. At least until you start to add enchantments onto the axe. But every time that I'm taking down one of those, it's doing double the amount of durability to my sword. So I'm at 236 right now. I break this, it goes down to 234. It's not the proper use of the tool. So is it the best tool for bamboo? That really comes down to you. This myth says that cobblestone is mined at the same speed as stone. All right, so I've got my haste 2, I've got my efficiency 5 pickaxe. I can instant mine through the stone. It is not quite instant to go through the cobblestone. As you can see here, it's going much slower than this. And on single blocks, it might be hard to notice, but when you're going through a lot of it, it really shows how much faster we go through clean stone. So the myth that we're testing is, does amethyst give off light? Well, let's find out. So sure enough, they do give off small amounts of light level given into the block. But the confusion here might be that they aren't emissive the same way that we think of like glow ink sacs or glow squids. The large one even gives up to a light level of 5. Not bad for something you can grow. This myth says that cobwebs are flammable. Well, let's enable fire tick and give it a shot. If I take my flint and steel here, I can't directly ignite the cobwebs. That isn't a good sign, but let's see if after enough time will it spread. So sure enough, we can see it breaking every single flammable block next to it except for the cobwebs. And the reason this myth might exist is because when you see fire start to spread through an abandoned mine shaft, it'll burn all the other blocks around it, but the cobwebs remain intact, even if the mine shaft doesn't. So this myth says that creaking hearts have a chance to generate when growing a pale oak tree. Well, let's find out and start to grow up my tree. Is there going to be any creaking hearts inside? Well, the truth is, no matter how many saplings I'm placing down, we're never going to get an actual post-generation creaking heart. They don't work the same way that beehives do when you plant a flower next to your sapling. And instead, if you're wanting more creaking hearts to prank your friends, you're just going to need 2 pale logs and a block of resin. No amount of bone meal is going to solve this for you. Are resin blocks effective scaffolding? So of course, we've got a few other blocks that work as common scaffolding, those being dirt blocks, which are slow to break unless you have the right shovel. Literal scaffolding, which always breaks instantly with a fist. Even T&D can work well as scaffolding because you can instant break it just as easily as you place it. But is a block of resin the same? And sure enough, you can break it fast enough where you even fall through and break your legs at the bottom. So be careful if you're using it. This myth says that red sand can be cooked into red glass. Let's take our coal and give that a test. Any second now, just regular glass is all you're gonna get. And nor does cooking red concrete powder give you any kind of red glass. The only way that you're gonna get this is by dyeing it after the fact in a crafting recipe. This myth says that you need silk touch to mine tinted glass. Well, we got our tinted glass here. Let's give it a check. Sure enough, it does break and give you back the tinted glass. The truth is that it would happen even if I was using a regular pickaxe. In fact, even my fist is enough to break the tinted glass and get it back. I guess all that amethyst you're using to reinforce it keeps it safe and not turning into shards. And thankfully so if I'm breaking it with my fist. This myth says that you're able to create a strange end portal if you align the directions of them out of order. So we have all of our end portals looking like they're placed in the right order for the frames, but as soon as I light it up, will it create this strange end portal outside of the portal? And sure enough, it is fully possible inside of vanilla to get this way. And Observer's favorite strange one is that if you build it vertically, like we would a nether portal, it's not going to light in the middle here, but it does light up top, giving us a very strange but functional end portal. So obviously we can't use our clocks inside of the nether, but can we use eye blossoms? Because these open at night. We've got different kinds of eye blossoms planted down here, but the truth is that no matter how much time is passing over here in the nether, we're not going to be privy to it, because the eye blossoms will always keep the state that you place them in when you plant them down. Whereas in the overworld, if I planted down an open eye blossom, it would close in the daylight and then open at night. Running on soul sand or soul soil will drain your boots if you're using soul speed. Well, let me give it a shot. My boots are clean and pristine. I put these on and I start sprinting with soul speed over here. And as long as I keep walking over these, eventually, sure enough, the durability's gone down 3 points. So soul speed, while great as it is to get you around, it is also going to take a little bit out of your durability. This myth says that soul sand can glitch you into lava. Well, let's give it a shot. So if I'm in survival here and I start walking around, if I'm crouching on the end, soul sand in its hitbox aligns you low enough where you're technically just sinking into the lava even if you're shifting on the edge. Whereas if I do it on the netherrack, I'm completely fine. And if you want an easy way to visualize this, let's get down our armor stands to show it off. That armor stand is sinking that much lower than the one on the netherrack. So it's not a glitch, it's intentional game design. This myth says that you don't have to go to the nether fortress to get nether wart. Well, as we can see here, that's demonstrably true, because in certain bastion remnants, you're able to find nether wart and soul sand down at the bottom here. But the truth is that if you actually wanted to go and use these to brew up potions, well, you could find a brewing stand naturally generated inside of a cleric house in a village. You do need blaze powder to actually make the potions. And the whole reason that it was changed to need blaze powder was because of these workarounds. Can you use splash water bottles to harden concrete powder in the nether? Well, for reference, if I'm on fire in the nether and I use a splash water bottle, it'll keep me safe, even extinguishing the fire. So does that same water that we brought in a jar work on these concrete powders? Unfortunately, no. So you'll need to pre-water your concrete before you bring it in. Myth busted. This myth says that if you wear a piglin head, it'll work like gold armor for making piglins safe. Well, let's find out, as apparently it doesn't take very kindly to me wearing one of its skin. But while it is true that piglins will still attack you if you're not wearing gold armor, it does have the same stealth effect that we see in Java Edition, where it lowers the detection range of different mobs. And that can be stacked up by using things like invisibility as well as sneaking. And then if I get close, if I were to take off the piglin head, then you'll see that was the only thing keeping me safe up to that distance. But it doesn't keep you completely safe, but it does reduce the range. So regular spawners, we can change what mob spawns inside by using a spawn egg. Is the same true for our trial spawners? Well, let's find out. We've got trial spawner here with no mobs inside. Well, sure enough, the wardens work. So as long as the mobs have the right block for them to spawn, whether that's water for aquatic mobs or grass for our passive mobs, we could spawn in a whole bunch of mobs this way. This myth says that vines will only spawn in the jungles or swamp biomes. But if we teleport onto location, in recent versions of the game, that just isn't so. Because when we get these tipped over logs that generate naturally in our forest, they can occasionally have vines on them. This myth says that lily pad direction is completely randomized. The truth is that no matter how I place this lily pad in this exact block, it'll always face in the exact direction. While it is randomized with the world seed, the truth is that you can actually use this as a preset code. And that goes back to an old video that simply started arc used, where you could use these to define the hidden code to get into your secret base. Do the new cactus flowers break our cactus farms? Well, let's give it a shot. If we take our random tick speed and set it up to 3000, you'll see that even though these ones that we have cactus flowers on top of will stop it from spawning, if there aren't any cactus flowers currently on these cacti, they'll continue to grow and work just the same. So your current cactus farm is not going to be broken by this update. This myth says that dry grass can be bone mealed like regular grass. So if I were to take down some bone meal and just use it like I would on grass blocks, do we get any kind of dry grass? No, it's only directly bone mealing the grass that allows us to get more. In this way, it's a lot more similar to the regular bushes that we're seeing that grow elsewhere. This myth says that it's possible for a cactus to grow taller than 3 blocks. Well, we can definitely see this one's 4 blocks tall. In fact, if you go and explore the world, you might see a couple of those happen, but it has nothing to do with how tall the cactus is growing, and it has everything to do with world generation. Since what can happen is that, strangely enough, it'll place multiple cacti in the same block, giving you a taller cactus. There have been specific seeds that have been found by people like GeoSquare that can go even taller, over 20 blocks tall for one singular cactus and a seed. But if you were to go place down a cactus yourself, it's never going to grow taller than 3 blocks. This myth says that ferns can drop seeds just like grass. Well, let's take my fortune hoe and give that a shot. If I go against our regular grass, we're going to get plenty of seeds there. Now let's break the ferns. And sure enough, right from the first one there, we're able to get seeds from ferns. This myth says that a furnace can produce enough light to melt the ice. Well, let's check that out. If I start to light off our furnace with our raw iron here, we can definitely tell it's giving off some amount of light here, but is it the same as our redstone torches, or is it going to actually melt the ice? Ah, there we go. As you can very clearly see, because ice melts at a light level of 11, and our furnaces can give off a light level of 13, it'll eventually melt the ice if you cook something inside. All right, we've got another ice myth. This one says that you can slide 9 times faster on blue ice than packed ice. Well, it does take 9 times the amount of packed ice to turn into blue ice. Let's give it a shot. All right, Observer, I'll take the regular ice. You can take the blue ice. Place down our boats into place. Well, Observer definitely goes faster than me on blue ice. There is a reason to use it, but 9 times faster? That's not the case. While the slipping attribute for blue ice is about 10 times more than it is for packed ice, the resulting boat speeds that we get are 40 blocks per second over on packed ice, and our blue ice goes up to 72.73 blocks per second, giving a boat speed that's roughly 1.8 times faster. This myth says that dispensers can be triggered by wind charges. If I take my wind charge and I throw it towards the dispenser, the only wind charge coming out is the one that I dropped off. And in fact, the reason that this might look like it's the case is because when you're in a trial chamber and you throw it towards any kind of button or lever down there, that will cause the dispenser to go off. And now we can see it shooting off. But without that button, the dispenser itself doesn't get activated. So on Java, we're not able to move container blocks. A composter being a container, should we be able to move it? Well, let's find out. Sure enough, even though the composter is holding different values inside of it with how much compost is inside, it is able to be pushed on both versions. And it's the same reason why we could push a cauldron like this, because it has a fill level, but it doesn't technically work as a container block. This myth says that chiseled bookshelves can power an enchanting table if fully filled up with books. Well, we've got all of our chiseled bookshelves with a whole bunch of books inside, but can we enchant anything worthwhile out of this? The answer is no. Our max level is the same as if the enchanted table didn't have any bookshelves next to it. And another way to know that this isn't working is because we can't see the particles going between it like we could if we used regular bookshelves, as you can see here. This myth says that if you power a drip leaf with redstone, it'll never fall. Well, let's give that a test. If I go on this unpowered one, obviously it falls down, but this one with the lever, just like that, it's completely safe for me to go on, giving you a way of setting up a unique kind of parkour course to run through. And in fact, even if it's fallen down, like so, as soon as I go and power it up, it immediately flips up. And that would be the reason why you find the drip leaf inside of the redstone blocks category of the creative menu. This myth says that hay bales will keep you completely safe from any kind of fall damage. Well, they definitely reduce it, but as you can see there, I do still take some amount of fall damage, but a lot less than if I fall off to the side. And the reason for this is that hay bales reduce the amount of fall damage by 80% consistently, meaning that you need to fall over 100 blocks to die from full health on a bunch of these hay bales. But it doesn't keep you completely safe, so myth busted. Candles can be lit with a flame enchanted bow. Well, let's give it a shot, and then if I go and pick up my flame arrow, the candles are fully lit. And in fact, the same would be true for our campfires. This myth says that you can bridge across gaps using only signs. Well, we definitely can't stand safely on these signs. We can't even go and crouch to the edge of them. But by using hanging signs, when placed horizontally like so, the top part of it does actually have a collision, giving us a safe way to walk across. It's just a little eerie to watch yourself do it, but you can even go and crouch on top of it, so it's still pretty safe. This myth says that barrier blocks can be waterlogged. Well, as we can see from this very oddly built water house, that's completely true. And as of 1.20.2, we're now able to place down a barrier block and then fill it up with some kind of water. You just can't fill it up with the tadpole, but this is a way to give you solid non-flowing water blocks in the air, or as a way to do a walking on water prank if you wanted to. This myth says that water can hydrate farmland that it doesn't even touch. Well, let's give it a shot. Remove some of these dead bushes, then till our soil. Will this farmland go into actual hydrated farmland? Sure enough, even though the water isn't even touching it, it's just waterlogged inside of a block like so, it actually can work across farmland in a wide range. This myth says that lava can be used to break your fall the same way that we use water to do it. Well, let's find out. Ow! While lava does slow down your fall momentum, it doesn't actually make it completely safe. Also, the fact that you're going to be standing in lava as soon as you land on your destination, which isn't very safe either. But if I were to give myself fire resistance, even then if I fall into the lava, I just fall through slower, giving me less fall damage for sure, but still fall damage. Can magma blocks warm up our striders even if they're outside of the lava? Well, let's find out. We got our strider here, and even though it's on the magma block, it's still cold. However, it's not actually taking any damage from the magma blocks. So while there is a special behavior just for our striders, it doesn't seem to like it very much anyway. This myth says that jungle leaves are less likely to drop their saplings than regular kinds of leaves. Well, let's find out. We've got our block of jungle leaves here, and then if we do a tick sprint, we'll see that even though we have so many jungle leaves that we place down here, the truth is that jungle leaves only have a 2.5% chance of dropping saplings compared to 5% of the other blocks, which is pretty brutal if you want to make yourself a 2x2 sapling tree. And then if you were to use fortune, then it would go up to 4.17% if you're using jungle, but 10% over here on the other leaf blocks. Only 3 from that whole set. This myth says that granite, andesite, and diorite aren't craftable inside of a crafting table, but let's find out. So if I take all of my blocks here, as you can see recommended by the recipe book, we actually can use quartz along with our blocks to give ourselves different kinds of stone blocks. Although it's so expensive that I don't really know why you'd be using it anyway. This myth says that barrels are cheaper to craft than our chests, so let's find out that. Alright, so to even go and craft up our barrel, I'm gonna have to use 3 planks spent to go and make the 6 oak slabs, and then it's 6 planks along the sides here, and 2 of those slabs, giving me a net spend of 9 planks, but we keep at least 2 of those blocks as slabs. Whereas if I wanted to craft up a chest, I technically keep 1 more plank, but I don't have as many blocks to build with. So it is technically cheaper, only costing 7 planks to craft up a barrel. You are going to use more planks effectively to get that. So I'll give this one a partial confirm. So carpets can be placed down to avoid vibrations from the skulk sensor. Is the same true for the moss carpet block? If I'm walking like so, I don't even have to be sneaking and the skulk sensor doesn't pick me up. But if I walk over to the moss carpet, unfortunately, it does give off some kind of sound. And luckily I'm learning this now before the warden goes and realizes it too. So ever since the changes to how our blocks actually break down into ore counterparts, a lot of us are actually going against these and breaking down our iron into the raw ore drop and then smelting that. But this myth says that it's impossible to go and smelt the actual ores instead, which if you go and check this out, even though I'm putting gold ore inside, it will still give me full gold ingots. But the truth is that if you're doing this, while it is technically confirmed, it is ridiculous. You could go and fortune the block as well, getting you up to 5 drops from it, meaning 5 potential ingots. So if you see your friends still making this mistake, you gotta bring them out to the modern age. This myth says that copper blocks cannot be used to power up a beacon. Well, we got a whole thing of copper blocks placed down here like so, and then I get my beacon into place. Nothing. Yeah, unfortunately, this myth is busted. And if you want to know what blocks that you can use to make your beacon, it's going to be all the ones that are listed here as materials that you could use to power up the beacon. Netherite, emerald, diamond, gold, and iron. The myth that we're testing here is that copper won't oxidize when you place it underwater. Well, let's give that a shot, placing our copper down onto these target blocks here. And as you can clearly see from our first victim there, it will actually still oxidize even if you have it underwater. This myth says that it's possible to make a completely safe wither statue. Well, Well, let me take the blocks here and give it a shot. I place down my wither statue like so. Why didn't it spawn? Well, the reason is that if you have a block that's underneath it, it can technically ruin the structure. And then at that point, it always has to be one of the wither skulls that's planted down last. If I were to have those first and then switch it out, it doesn't matter how much soul soil or soul sand I place underneath, I'll have a completely safe and very scary scarecrow. And it could be a fun way to prank your friends, making them think that you're gonna place down the wither when instead you didn't have anything planned. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?